at 4. In the meantime, please introduce yourself in the chat window, where you're from, and what are you expecting from this session. The working of the world has changed in the past 2 months, and so is our learning style. In these unprecedented times where everything has come to a halt, Firki is continuously moving with the purpose to keep your teaching and learning process going through a specifically designed initiative, Learning During Lockdown. This initiative contains a plethora of virtual sessions and resources across a wide range of topics categorized broadly under 3 buckets: work from home, getting ready for school, and health and wellness. So please keep looking for communication about each of these webinars in your inboxes in the coming days. You can join the Firki webinars from 2 platforms. One is the Zoom session and the other is on Facebook Live. If you have friends who are interested in joining the session but have found Zoom session full, request them to join us on FB Live. The link to the same will be pasted shortly on the chat window. Now I will take you through a few features on Zoom and FB Live that you can use to have an engaging and productive session. This is the mic button. Click on the mic button to unmute and share your views. Use this feature only when the speaker requests you to do so. Click on the video button to switch off the video and avoid bandwidth issues. Click on the chat button to send a message to everyone. Click on the raise hand button if you want to ask a question and or share your thoughts in between. You can share your questions and suggestions in the comments box. Your responses will be curated and shared with the speaker on the Zoom session by me. After the webinar, talk to the people around you on what you learned today. We remember the best when we share our learning with others. Practice learning from the webinar in your work. Watch recording of the webinar and notes on www.firki.co or Firki app. To attend the next Firki webinar, sign up on www.firki.co to get updates. Firki recently launched its Teachers of India campaign. Teachers of India is an initiative to recognize the contributions of the teaching community towards building a nation of capable learners and leaders. If you are a teacher, we want to celebrate you. Please send your story on the link visible on your screens. It will shortly be shared on the chat window as well. We will now hear some testimonies from different people who have used our Firki app. Sorry about the technical issue. Give us a second to fix this.
फिरकी ज्वाइन करने से मुझे अपने अंदर काफ़ी कॉन्फिडेंस भी आया और बच्चों के अंदर क्या इम्प्रूवमेंट कर सकती हूँ इसका भी मुझे फ़ायदा मिला है।
हमेशा कुछ नया सीखने की कोशिश में रहती हूँ ताकि बच्चों को भी कुछ कराते वक्त जहाँ कहीं भी परेशानी आए उसके लिए कोई सलूशन हो। तो फिरकी मेरे ख्याल से हमें एक वो सलूशन देने के लिए है और फिरकी अपने नाम से ही जाहिर है कि फिरकी मतलब वो चीज़ जो चारों तरफ घूमती हो, यानी कि एक चौतरफा जिसका असर हो, और शायद वो चतुर्मुखी विकास में बच्चों के लिए मदद करे। तो मुझे अच्छा लगा इस कार्यक्रम में आके।
फिरकी ज्वाइन करके मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा। बच्चों के बारे में कुछ सीखने को, अपनी गलतियां सुधारने को, उसको देखने के बाद अब बच्चों की गलतियां सुधारने का मौका मिला, जिससे हमें बच्चों में पता लगा सके हम कि क्या क्या चेंज करके बच्चों में क्या इम्प्रूवमेंट कैसे कर सकते हैं, क्या इम्प्रूवमेंट हम अपने आप में कर सकते हैं जिससे बच्चों में पढ़ने का इंटरेस्ट आए।
कुछ नई चीज़ें सुनने के लिए नए ढंग से मिली हैं, और मैं चाहूँगी कि इन नई चीज़ों को नए तरीके से कुछ अपनी सोच के साथ मैं बच्चों पर ही इस्तेमाल कर सकूं, ताकि वो बच्चों के लिए भी उपयोगी हो और मेरे भी अनुभव में वृद्धि करें, आगे बढ़ने में मदद करें। क्योंकि हमारा जो काम है वो ऐसा है जिसमें हम हमेशा सीखते रहते हैं और सिखाते रहते हैं। तो शायद फिरकी इसके लिए एक बहुत ही अच्छा माध्यम है। मैं बहुत शुक्रगुजार हूँ। थैंक यू फिरकी।
With that, let's move on to the webinar at hand today. Thank you for taking the time to join us in this discussion. In designing this, With that, let's move on to the webinar today. Welcome to Firki's webinar on teaching and learning with adolescent boys, designed in partnership with the Training and Impact team of Teach for India. My name is Mansi. I'm a course designer on the Firki team, and I will help you navigate through the webinar today. We will now watch a short video that will help us introduce the Firki website and its features. I request Ellie to share the video.
Website offers a diverse set of content for teachers to support them in their professional development as well as in their classrooms, and is free of charge and easy to use. In order to access the portal, type firki.co and you will be directed to the Firki website. To register on Firki, fill in a brief registration form. You can also sign in through your Google account. You will have to use your email ID in order to create an account on our website. This account is again free to create and use. Once you create your account and log in with your credentials, you will be directed to the dashboard. The dashboard would have notifications related to your profile, course progress, time spent, and your Firki discussion groups. To access different pedagogical courses, you can click on the courses link on the top left of the screen. The courses page allows you to choose courses based on difficulty level and category. The courses are also available in different regional languages. Feel free to browse the different courses we have in our catalog using the search bar above. Each Firki course is designed using the FITS model that stands for Feel, Imagine, Do, and Share. The Feel section of the course helps you identify your current practices. The Imagine section defines the practices that one should follow to improve teaching and learning outcomes. A detailed description of strategies are highlighted under the Do section that one can implement in the classroom and with their students. At last, the Share section talks about ways in which one can share their learnings with each other. Each course has also a set of reflection questions as part of the assessment section. Along with the course material, each Firki course also contains a learning circle plan and journal pages. A learning circle plan helps the coaches and mentors conducting the offline learning circles to discuss and share learnings from the course. A journal page summarizes the course with important points. We are adding new courses every month, so keep watching this space. Next up, we have the webinars page that is also accessible from the top left of the screen. On this page, you will find information about the upcoming webinars. If you scroll down, you will find a bunch of resources from our older webinars. These resources will include video recordings of the webinar itself, notes from the webinar, the presentation used by our speaker, and other resources on the topic covered. Do feel free to browse this section at your leisure. The final page to look out for is the resources page, also to be found at the top left corner of your screen. This page houses and will house resources from several of our partner organizations, such as the British Council, Khan Academy, Storyweaver, Pratham Books, and more. We are in the process of adding to the list, and you can easily filter resources by partners, grades or standard, and the subject of instruction. We hope you find value in using these resources in your practice as teachers and educators. Finally, you can find the Firki app on the Play Store and can access these courses, resources, and webinars through your phone. So download our app and stay connected to teaching and learning on the go.
I hope the video helped you in knowing more about Firki. If you have any questions around any of the features highlighted in the video, please write to us at contactfirki@teachforindia.org. The link will be posted shortly on the chat window. With that, let's move on to the webinar section. Thank you for taking the time for joining us here. In designing this and other webinars throughout the year, the Firki team is hoping that we can disseminate meaningful knowledge and skills that take us to our goal of improving the quality of education in Indian classrooms. With the aim to get ready for school, we will explore how the students and teachers build a classroom culture and set structures that enable the students to feel safe, aware, and responsible. And now I'll introduce the speaker for today. Hafsa was a 2016 Teach for India Fellow. She worked with Hyderabad program team in the past and currently leads Learning Loops at Teach for India for the Training and Impact team. That brings us to the norms for today. Given the large audience that we are expecting today, please keep your video and mic off to reduce stress on the bandwidth. Unmute only when the speaker asks you to do so. You can keep typing your questions in the chat box during the session. Hafsa will try to address as many of them as possible throughout the webinar. I will be here to curate your questions and comments throughout the webinar. Do remember that learning new things is often difficult, but challenge yourself and reflect on your thinking and experiences today. The best way to experience something is to write or discuss your learning with someone after the webinar. The webinar will be recorded and will be available on YouTube and the Firki website soon. This brings me to the end of my introduction. Thank you for your patience. Hope you have an interesting evening. Over to our speaker now.
Thanks, Mansi. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. So lovely to see all of your introductions and where you're joining the webinar from. If you haven't had a chance to do that, please keep introducing yourself and keep sharing which part of the country or world you are in right now. I'm going to quickly take a second and share my screen. Hey, I hope you can see my screen. As we wait for everyone to join, would love for us to take a minute and just grab, like Mansi said, a book or a pen so you can take notes, scribble some ideas, questions, anything that stands out to you during this webinar. Also type into the chat box, what do you hope to take away from this call? So when you read the blurb, you read the email, you signed up, what are some expectations you have? I'm going to try and keep reading the chat box throughout the webinar. So welcome everybody. Okay, welcome to the webinar of Teaching and Learning with Adolescent Boys. Really excited to deep dive into what it takes for us as educators to teach in a classroom with teenage and adolescent boys specifically is what we'll be deep diving into in this webinar. Before we jump in, would love for us to follow two norms today in the webinar. One is take as many notes as you can. So you can either take notes in a book or you can use the chat box as your note-taking device. So keep sharing your thoughts, comments, questions. If you have any ideas, any reflection, anything that stands out to you, please use the chat box as much as you can. This is how we can make this virtual learning experience more interactive. I have one question for you already that you can share on the chat box. So today on the call, we'll try and practice having an open mind and an open heart to learning. If you can share on the chat box what that can look like, how you can practice having an open mind and open heart. Just chat that in the chat box, and I am reading your comments. Accepting views and acknowledging them. Thank you for sharing. Accepting children as they are. Okay. Having a non-judgmental attitude, listening to what others are saying. Definitely, we will be exploring a lot of new concepts that might be new for some of us. So let's try and practice having an open heart and open mind during the webinar today. I'd like to share what are two things that we want to achieve by the end of this 1.5 hour that we'll be spending together. So if after the call, you feel really inspired by what's possible, that's a success. So we want all of the participants to leave this call feeling really inspired and motivated, having really high expectations and belief from their students. And I hope I'm not going to try and inspire you. I'm going to let the teachers and students inspire you on this call. The second thing I hope for all of us is you feel confident in your ability to do what you want to do for your students. So some of the practices that will be shared on this call that the teachers were doing, I hope you find them really easy to do. I hope you think, "Arey, this though I've been doing for so many years. This is so easy. This I can do on my own." So the practices I hope you find very easy to apply in your own practice. As we get into the webinar, I'd like for us to root ourselves into big questions. The first big question being, what did the students learn? So we will be exploring some classrooms. We will watch student interviews, we watch teaching videos. And as we watch these videos, I want you to think about what are the students learning? So what is my goal? What is my vision for the adolescent boys in my classroom or school? The second question I want us all to ask ourselves is, how did they learn so much? So what were the teachers doing in the classroom that has helped the boys learn what they have? Okay, with that, let's move on. I would like to start the webinar with a very short story. It's called The Bright Spots Story. The Bright Spot story starts in a village in Vietnam, where a man called Jerry Sturin, the man you see sitting on the left-hand side, was called to Vietnam to address a malnutrition crisis that the country was facing. So he goes to a village and he realizes that majority of the newborn children in this village are malnourished. So what he doesn't have is, he doesn't have a lot of resources or money or research that he can use in the work that he's doing. All of the research that Jerry did told him that, to tackle malnutrition, children need access to clean drinking water, they need access to sanitation, they need healthy food. Poverty is almost synonym with malnutrition. All of this, he said, was true but useless. If children had to wait for access to clean water or better sanitation, or like poverty to end, malnutrition would never end. You can't wait for these bigger problems to be solved to address malnutrition. So his approach was very different. What he did was he gathered the mothers in the village and he asked them, are there any children in your village that are chubbier, healthier, fatter than the average child? And they said, yes, of course there are. So Jerry said, let's go see what they're doing. Here you can see a group of mother volunteers and researchers going and weighing a child that was healthier in this family. So they went and studied some of these families and what their parents and what the mother and the father was doing that resulted in the child being healthier than the average child in this village. What they found was that the norm, the custom in this village was that the children ate 2 meals in a day, and they ate alone, they ate by themselves. What Jerry and his team found was that the children who were healthier were actually eating the same amount of food, but it was spread across 4 meals. So they ate the same amount of food, but they ate 4 times a day, so they ate more frequently. And there was also an adult who was supervising the food that they were eating, right? So the children weren't eating on their own, somebody was feeding them. There was a very simple difference in what the malnourished or the healthy children were doing, but it was very easy to replicate. So they went around and educated the mothers, asked them to feed their children 4 times a day, asked them to hand feed them. And what they found was that 6 months after they conducted this group work, 65% of the children in that village were healthier, better nourished. And even when Jerry and his team of researchers left, they stayed that way. What I found particularly inspiring about this story was that the solution didn't come from the outside. It was there within the village itself. And that's one of the reasons this anecdote stood out to me specifically. Would love for us to pause for a minute and think about what is the connection that you see between the story that I just shared of Jerry and the mothers in Vietnam and the work that you are doing. What is a connection you are drawing between the two? Would love for you to chat your responses. We do have some practices among ourselves that we need to identify. Any other connection that you're making to your own work as a teacher? Whatever be the problem, the solution is always around you. Finding the root cause of a problem is important. Look for the bright spots. Incredible. Thank you for sharing those responses. Keep chatting in anything that stands out to you. So with that, I just wanted to share some of the approach. We follow essentially the same approach in the work that we're doing at Teach for India as well. We conduct research and we try and identify what are the bright spots in our own schools, in our own classrooms, where students and teachers are learning exceptional things. And then we study these classrooms and we try to understand what's working in these classrooms. After we identify what's working in these classrooms, we try and share our learnings and our insights with the wider community. And this webinar is one of our attempts at sharing what we're learning with the wider community. With that, I would like to jump into one of the classrooms that we shared in the pre-work. So in the email that all of you received, there was a few videos. I'm hoping some of you watched Akshay's classroom and had a chance to hear from his students. So if you did have a chance to watch the video, would love for you to share what are the 3 words that came to your mind when you heard Akshay and his students speak? How would you describe this classroom in 3 words? Okay. Okay, so in this webinar, we'll be watching some videos from 2 teachers called Sanjana and Ishani, and we'll meet their 10th grade classroom. And we will hear from the students and the teachers and watch real classroom footage and understand what was the bright spot and what was working in this classroom. There were many questions all of you shared when you were signing up for this webinar. I have read through all of them. I have picked up some questions. So we will do a 1 hour talk where I'll show you some videos and we'll do a discussion, after which we will have a half an hour of panel discussion. So I've called a few teachers who've taught adolescent boys, and they will address some of these questions directly that you shared with us when you were signing up. So these questions will be addressed towards the end of the webinar as well. With that, I want to jump into a student interview. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch a student interview. There are 2 questions I would like all of us to keep in mind as we are hearing from our students. The questions are, what are the students saying, doing, and believing? So what are you hearing the students say? And they will also share some things that help them learn. So what are some practices that these students are sharing that help them learn in their classroom? We're going to start with a student interview. We are thinking about what are the students saying, doing, and believing, and what is helping our students learn as shared by them. So this is a 10th grade classroom, and this is a student interview.
Meditation calm me and it make my thoughts clear. Right now I have many thoughts that what I have to say, and I'm a little nervous also. It makes me more confident.
For me, meditation good stress buster during exams and during my daily routine.
And adding on the Deepak's point, meditations empty our mind. It's very important to focus on things. I'm feeling a little bit nervous, but I'm happy that we are on this stage right now.
Before 5 years, our classroom is like it's very much messed up with so many students coming from different schools. They don't know each other. We are always kept on fighting, bunking schools, doing all that kind of things. And bhaiyas, didis who have come, they have shown us the path to here. I'll show you that how I had seen this journey from my eyes. So before, like, I had came to Delhi when I was 5 years old, and I lived my 5 years in Bihar, and I only know Maithili, so I didn't know how to speak in Hindi even. So from the very beginning, I was a very shy kind of person. When I came in 6th, school was far from my home. I started bunking school. I abused with friends and do all that stuff when I was in 6th. So that was 4 days before our summer holidays. After summer holidays, Dipanshu and Nachal had came. I kept on coming late school. I used to play in the park. When I get tired of doing these things, I started getting deep into studies. Like, what is studies? Let's go in it and find out how it looks like. So Arunachal Bhaiya had helped me a lot in it. When Sanjana Didi had came, I was not very much frank with her, nor with Ishani Didi. But because I had restricted myself, because I haven't ever been taught by a female fellow, I don't even understand that, because I don't even clear my doubts. She used to come to me and speak to me. So initially I was not able to speak much. I was not able to express myself, who I am. So when I go home and thinking about that, I was quite sad. I was so much underconfident when I speak to Didi. So I started writing letters to Didi, started giving feedbacks. While giving feedback, I also getting closer to her.
Bro, I don't really knew that much about you. So I loved listening that. Thank you for sharing.
In the initial years, I was not a good student. I was an average student. I got average marks. And in the initial time, I was not very frank with Arunachal Bhaiya and Dipanshu Bhaiya. I used to be very far away from them. On the PTM of class 8 results, Arunachal Bhaiya said that you can do well. At that time, I got 77%, and the person who topped in our class got 87%. There is a 10% difference between us. I was very determined after this. I just studied throughout the day and making timetables, making daily routines, setting up my goal. I think this was a very big growth for me because I was in the 70s line and I got to 90s line. I also created a buddy system in my class. In buddy system, I taught one of my friend who's shown a really good growth. I used to get bullied a lot. I used to cry in the class and people used to make fun of me a lot. They also said some of the words like they have said me transgender, female, like these words they have said me for my behavior. So at that time it was very difficult for me to survive in the class. But now everyone sees me a respected student.
It was very amazing to see Nakul growth. He was very closed inside him. He was very good in studies, but I don't think he was very good in outer thing, exploring or having good opportunities. Nowadays he's very frank. He gives answers, he gives solution, he laughs.
According to me, Praveen is the most friendly person in our class because whenever I used to be alone in the class, he used to come to me, talk to me, and he used to make jokes, and he was also a stress buster for me.
I think earlier I was good in academics, but I was not good in this values. I remember I have to go to Faridabad for my father business and I don't know what is happening in school. I am started absent, and when I come and see that everything has changed, Arunachal, Dipanshu Bhaiya has left, I used to think, where have I come? In 6th, 7th, I'm very good. I was answering, I was thinking, very creative. Anubhav Bhaiya and Aruna Bhaiya. I think their teaching style at that time was very high. So I was unable to, come on the track. Ishani Didi, her classes was very creative, very connected to our daily life, and teaching style is very different. I think I'm decreased, but nowadays I am getting to opportunity and exploring things.
So when I see quickly pause here to let you complete your notes. Please share what are you seeing the students share in terms of what are they saying, what are they doing, what are they believing, what are they sharing in terms of what helped them learn. I'm seeing some great comments on the chat box. Thank you for sharing. There's a lot of reflection. Students are very aware, self-analysis, like somebody shared. They're very aware of themselves. They're talking about, I wasn't interested in studies before. I used to bunk classes. I used to, just waste my time. So there's a lot of awareness in who they are and how they are behaving. There's a lot of appreciation for each other also. That I'm so proud of you for how you've grown. I'm so proud of my friends for how they've grown. I also noticed, yes, meditation, they're talking about meditation helped. I think what was particularly interesting for me was when one of the students shared that, he used to get 70% marks and then he started getting 80% marks. The difference, the thing that helped him based on his reflection is that his teacher said, you can do better. So his teacher said you can do better, and that was one thing that pushed him to make timetables, set goals, have a buddy system so that he was teaching his other friends also. So encouragement definitely is something that I'm seeing as really working for our boys. I'm going to resume playing the video now, but keep typing in or taking notes of anything that the students are saying that is standing out to you, and also when they're sharing what is helping them learn.
Praveen, and there are some other kids like they're kind of hero of our class in 6th and 7th, and I was like with no rules and regulation and come to school just for fun. By just living in their groups, I had also get some of them. So when I went to Arunachal Bhaiya and just asked him that, Bhaiya, teach me something or show me path to be a better person, to be a better student. He starts showing me the beauty of everything, like beauty of math, the aesthetics of the studies, like golden ratio, I like music. I like playing guitar. By doing that, it does not just make me happy, but it also made me more curious about things around me, parallel lines and intersection between them. I have made connection to that with my guitar. My guitar strings, there are 6 strings and they are all parallel. I also like science, exploring about space, stars. I want to be a theoretical physicist. I want to pursue my science with my guitar. They kind of give me the eyes which I used to see things differently from others people. I think I hadn't touched my grammar books because I don't like it. The rules, the regulation they make me follow, I don't like it. I can't even to memorize them. So I've learned my all English which I'm speaking from movies, music and by reading books. In 8th, Dipanshu had given me a book, Animal Farm. At that time I'd find it very childish because they are animals, but when I read it after a year, I find that it's a satire novel. With my different knowledge what I have gained through these years and understand it that it's something about democracy. In that book, it's Napoleon, a wise old pig. He had said that we are animals. We trodden on this land. We dwell on this land. We do work, hard work, and who get benefits of it? Who get the grains which we plug through the soil, and who get the milk? Who get the eggs? Humans. Why? And so they have made some amendments and fundamental rights. There is a leader of that, a pig. So through time, he get addicted to power. If I talk about today, let's see that how BJP is shaping the India. Before some time, so Narendra Modi had started Ganga Swachh Abhiyan, Ganga Saaf Abhiyan. So why had run only to Ganga? There are so many rivers to India because it's very connected to Hinduism. Why they are doing that? Because 80% of them are Hinduism. So they will do good for Hinduism. So they'll get more votes from them. And then who wins? Who gets more vote? So they are doing good for them so that they can be in power for a long time. Who are in the powers? They are kind of good. They are doing good, but who supports them? Who advise them? They are not very well. I think very well matured. Kind of. They don't have that much of values, knowledge, kind of thing. Therefore, they are doing this. When we get older and we get on those institutions, we can rock our country.
I like to read adventurous books. I also like to read autobiographies because it really motivates me. Or I read autobiographies of Helen Keller, APJ Abdul Kalam, and important personalities like Narendra Modi. Right now, India is on a developing path, but still there are some social levels in our society. But if we look at different point of view, we also growth in different areas. For example, information and communication technology. Most of the multinational companies want to invest in India because we are providing favorable policies to them. We are providing other resources that they wanted to set up their production in India. But still there are flexibility in labor laws. But but the main problem in India is that there is a tremendous use of money and muscle power that really hinds our development.
When I get free time, so I explore YouTube or Facebook. I was interested in poetry and storytelling, so I keep exploring things. So I learn how to express and very confidently. I remember that when we are doing play theater workshop about substance abuse, we called it like safe space, and Didi tell us that we have to get into that character and understand what is that role of that character, and understanding our strength is also there from that play. Many of our friends know that we are good in acting.
When I see in my class, there are some whiners, bloggers. Even I'm good in music, arts and science and math, beatboxers. So when I go to school, I take this much of knowledge, what I know, what I see or what I have, and everyone doing the same. They are bringing this much of knowledge of their own.
I loved about our class is brotherhood, relationship with our friends, and we all encourage in our house or out of the school. We are like, I feel very alone. This bond, this brotherhood and this sisterhood and so helped me to be connected.
Two things that that change the scenario of our class is: first is great effort by all the Didis and Bhaiyas, and second, the determination that I saw in my classmates. Our class really participate a lot during each and every subject. It can be even Sanskrit and Hindi. They want to work hard. They are really curious to do everything.
How will I continue? Okay. The first thing I want that positivity in me, and for that I write my daily journal. When I see it, I get that I'm getting good at this thing. I can make improvement from it, even though Bhaiya and Didi will be not there for me. There I can reflect myself. I was making my resolution. I'm thinking about on 1st of Jan that what I have learned from these many years of Teach for India. So I've learned that excellent education is not something which we get. It is something which we take. I know my.
Okay, I'm going to stop the video here. Feel free to watch. So these videos are available on YouTube along with many other videos. So feel free to watch them whenever you find time. I'm going to give us 30 seconds of silence just to think about what you watched, and please share your thoughts in the chat box. I will definitely, you'll receive all of the links to all of the resources that we share in this webinar on an email after this webinar. Great responses coming in. There's a sense of belongingness, definitely. They're very determined. They're talking very passionately about the things they love. So it can be a book they're reading, it can be the guitar they're playing, or the beatboxing they're doing, or the poetry they're writing, or academics. Not all of the students are talking about, studies and marks, but whatever they are talking about, they're talking about with so much passion and so much love. They have opinions, they're sharing their opinions based on facts and reasons. Okay, incredible. And so we watched some of Akshay's videos in the pre-work when it was shared with you in the interview. There was Sanjana and Ishani's classroom, the student interview we just watched. There are a few other boys' classrooms that we've studied over the past few years, and we've thought about what are we seeing common across these bright spots, what are we learning, and what I'll share is just a summary of what all of you have shared and reflected in the chat box. These three things, these three student outcomes are the ones that really stood out to me. If you feel like I've missed out anything, please chat that in. I'm going to leave this on for 10 seconds to let you read it and draw connections between what you've seen and what you're reading. This is what we're seeing our students say, do, and believe, right? They say that they feel safe in the classroom. They feel like their classroom is a community. It's a brotherhood. We saw them celebrate and feel proud of each other. We saw them being so reflective of their own growth and their own journey. We saw them talk about the world around them, having an understanding of the world that they're living in, and a lot of ownership, a lot of responsibility for their own life and their own learning. There's a teacher phrase that I really like, which I think summarizes this. It says, I can and I want, when my students feel like they can do something and they want to do something. So this is what our students have learned. This is what we are seeing them say, do, and believe. So the next question, I'm sure all of your minds is, how do we do this? What are some things I can do as a teacher to build this in my students as well? And for that, I am so excited to show you a glimpse of the classroom that these three boys were a part of. as we are watching the classroom video, would love for us to think about what are the teacher actions, what is she saying and doing in the classroom, and we will try to form connections between, okay, this is what the teacher did and this is how the students have learned what they've learned. So I'm going to keep this question up for 10 seconds and let you note it down and start playing the next video. So here we are going to watch a math lesson. This is a 10th grade boys classroom, like you know, the 3 boys that we saw are part of this classroom, and we'll take a glimpse into this class and see what did the teachers do to build this for them. As always, keep typing in any comments, anything that's standing out to you, and feel free to even take notes in your book. And let's begin.
Breathe in. Breathe out. Rub your palms, put them on your eyes. Alright. Eyes on the board, boys. Can we quickly recap what is volume? What do we understand by volume? Alright, Prashant.
Space occupied in capacity.
When do we use the word capacity? Manav, try.
It is basically used for space in a 3D shape.
Right, space in a 3D shape. There are different kinds, there's solid, liquid, gas. Capacity is used for? Vineet, what do you think capacity is used for? Liquids. Thank you. Next comes volume of frustum of a cone. How do we form frustum of a cone? Does anyone remember? Nitesh?
It is a cross section of a cone.
It is a part of a cone, alright. What part of the cone is it?
When it is cut from its base.
No.
Alright.
Middle, sorry, from middle.
From the middle, which is parallel to?
Base.
The base. So the bottom is called the frustum. Let's quickly run through its formula. Does anyone remember what the CSA is? Saurabh?
Pi L R1 plus R2.
Alright, what's my R1 and R2?
Smaller circle B R1 and L is the slant height.
The slant height. What is the TSA of a frustum?
It is pi L bracket R1 plus R2 bracket close.
Alright. Do we see a connection between the CSA and the TSA? Nakul, can you help explain what is it?
TSA means the whole surface area and CSA means the area of a solid excluding the base area. So in TSA we also include its base area.
Have you understood the connection between the CSA and TSA? Give me a thumbs up if you have. Alright, perfect. Who can tell me the formula for the volume? Sonu, try.
1/3 pi h into R1 का square plus R2 का square plus R1 into R2.
Alright. Alright, thank you so much, guys. We'll be applying the volume of frustum to solve an authentic environment problem, right? So, you're all sitting in your community groups. Discuss 5 qualities you think a student leader should have.
Participate. We have the connection between the students. Connection? Making connection. Leader को कहाँ से connection होना चाहिए?
A good network होना चाहिए.
He should have good network. हाँ, good network होना चाहिए. A student leader should be solution oriented plus a right decision maker.
Alright, thank you. Vivek, can you tag somebody in the Saidullah Job group?
Thinking from all point of view, not just thinking by only one person of view, and from critical thinking, you get solutions.
Perfect. Thank you. Rohit, tag somebody in the Sangam Vihar team.
Responsible and caring.
All right. Tag somebody from the Madangir group.
Student leader should have good communication skills. He would have the skill of controlling the people.
Accountable and give equal chance to others.
Accountable to whom?
Accountable to the person, to people. Like he's making any kind of decisions that gonna affect people, normal people. So we have to be accountable for that.
You guys today are all these things. You are the student leaders of your community.
Again, I'm going to quickly pause for 10 seconds in case you want to complete your notes, share anything that stood out to you, and then we'll continue.
You have the next 4 minutes to go through the case study. It belongs to your community.
The story is about a girl, Ravina. She wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning. She collects water in buckets with some units given.
She goes to another country and see how they are using pot, others using plastics.
What material is the pot made of? What is the shape of the pot? Can someone tell me?
It's 1 cuboid and 2 press.
Okay, if you agree with Sumit, can I get a thumbs up? He says it's 1 cuboid and 2 frustums. Alright, I see some hands are not been raised. Shivam, what do you think it is?
Yeah, I think there are 2 frustums of cone.
Remember, the 2 ends of a frustum are circular and the top and the bottom of a cuboid are rectangles. So do you think they can form a clay pot with no water coming out of it? Think. Saurabh, do you want to give it a try again?
2 frustum and 1 cylinder.
And 1 cylinder. Thank you so much, Saurabh. Does anyone have a doubt why it should be a cylinder and not a cuboid? Alright. Sunny, do you want to explain it to Amit and Sandeep?
A cuboid will have the rectangular end and a frustum has circular end. So it cannot fit.
Go through the case study again. What I want you to list down in your notebook is what are the mathematical concepts that I will be using to solve the 3 questions. Two into volume of frustum into 500. No, he's done it right. He's done CSA sirf plus एक circle को add किया.
Minus TSA.
It will be the same thing. If you try doing it by TSA minus pi r square, see if you get the same answer. Aryan, what are some mathematical concepts that you will be using?
The पहले volume of frustum.
All right.
Frustum 1 base area CSA.
All right. So CSA
Plus 1 base.
plus
1
pi
base
r
area.
square. All right. Thank you, Aryan. This is for question 2. In question 1, will you be doing any other mathematical concept except for volume of cone? Rohit Verma?
Unitary method.
Where will you be using unitary method?
By changing inches to meters.
So you will be converting inches to liters. I'm going to push this class even further. CSA plus pi r square, you need to figure out how much plastic is being used to make a bucket. Is there any other way that you can find it out?
We can take out the TSA of frustum and then we minus the pi r square because it is open from the upper side. That's why.
Right. So when you find the volume, when you find the area of the plastic buckets, you can either do CSA plus the bottom or you can take out the total frustum area and subtract the top. So either one you can apply. Alright. Any other mathematical concepts in the next few? Vineet?
There are 500 families, so 500.
Since we have figured out all the mathematical concepts that we need to use to solve this environmental problem, I'm giving you the next 20 minutes. Individually, you have to try to solve the mathematical problem.
Again, I'm going to quickly pause for all of us to complete our notes. One thing that I'm realizing as I'm watching this video again, is how much I've forgotten my maths. I don't remember anything she's teaching. But anything else, you're noticing, I'm seeing some great observations about how she's involving group work, individual work, encouraging the students, calling each of them by their names. She's only asking questions. She's giving very little answers to the students. A lot of people on this call are very interested in how she's connecting maths to some other subjects. And overall, it's a very interactive and lively class. Here, just to repeat again, we are noticing on what the teacher is doing specifically. Very clear instructions, definitely. She says things like 4 minutes you have 20 minutes, you will do group work, you will do individual work. Not discouraging wrong answers. Very interesting. Okay, let's keep watching.
What did you find easy in the questions?
Applying formulae, applying logics, and creating a case study.
Okay, you found the reading comprehension of the case study easy and applying the mathematical concepts. What was difficult, can someone tell me?
Difficult calculation.
Okay, if your answer is difficult calculations, you can give me a thumbs up. Alright, what kind of values did you operate with when you were solving the problem?
I share what I know so that they can also resolve the problem what they have. It's a mathematical problem, but if I kept on doing in the bigger...
Is one value that you operated with. The next question has to do with the usage and wastage of plastic in your communities.
We used to buy any chocolates or thing from market. We just wrap it up and we took the wrapper out and we throw it on the road. And
so food packages.
The pan and everything what we use mostly is made from plastic. And in a daily life, when we go to sabji mandi, then we take a polythene.
Vivek said mobile phones are our lifeline and that is plastic. He used a very beautiful word saying it's our lifeline, all these things. How does that make you feel about how much plastic we are using?
Guilty.
Guilty.
When we wake up and when we are sleeping, in that session we use many plastics. And so reliable, very hard to live without them.
How long do you think this problem will take to solve?
I think 1,000 years.
1,000 years? By 2050, it's 2019, in another 30 years, there'll be more plastic in the oceans than the fish. Right? There'll be more area full of landfills, full of garbage, than area to build houses on our planet. Let's just ban plastic, let's completely stop the usage of plastic, or let's tax plastic. Sumit, can you explain what taxing plastic would mean?
In today's life, we have a very lower tax on plastic. I remember I bought the polythenes, it is almost 50 rupees per kg.
Oh wow, okay. Thank you for sharing. Can someone explain what a tax is? Just so everyone's on the same page, what is a tax? Manav, explain.
Extra charges by the government.
Raise your hands. How many of you say plastic should be banned absolutely? Alright, we have 4 people who say plastic should be banned completely. One by one, can you tell me the reasons for why you want to ban plastic?
Create pollution. So, due to this, lots of diseases are caused, such as typhoid and a lot of things.
Plastic will be taxed. Then the industry is producing plastic would not be shuttered. So, if the industry is not shut, then they will cause air pollution also.
You said we should ban plastic, right? So once you ban plastic, the industries or the factories that are producing plastic will have to shut down. What will that lead to if factories shut down?
Unemployment.
When we ban plastic, then we use steel. Like because of Coca-Cola, we can use can.
Only if you ban plastic can you force the public to choose an alternative.
Plastic is really hazardous for animals. As Hindustan Unilever also came up with an ad where a cow eats plastic.
Many people are not aware about plastics and they don't have the knowledge. Why is it harmful? So if we totally ban, then the people would basically get the idea that it is bad or it is not good for us. So getting full attention or awareness.
Only when we ban things do we wake up as a public. All right. For the students who want to tax plastic now, why tax and not ban completely?
If we ban plastic, then there will be more use of synthetic things or natural things, and more use of, if there will be more use of natural things, there will be degradation of natural things like deforestation, and if we ban plastic, there will be economic crisis, poverty, and illegal things will be increased, like the plastic will sell in black.
And if we tax it, the money will go to the government. That will lead to economic growth.
What do you think the government can do with that money?
It can give an alternate and produce something else.
The government can use all the tax money to research for alternatives.
I have a very different opinion, that is, it should neither be banned and nor be taxed. In case of banning, it can lead to malpractices. And if we taxed on plastic, it so that poor will not afford, and it may also lead to conflicts. And conflicts, unfortunately, may lead to disintegration of the country. So as a solution, the government should reduce its usage.
I'll push you further. You said the...
I'm going to pause the video here. I would love for you to watch the entire classroom video and also a few other videos we have from this classroom whenever you find time after the webinar. For now, let's take 10 seconds of silence and really make connections between what we heard the students say and what we saw that the students had learned, and what is the connection I'm seeing between what were the teacher actions that I think have. Okay, so many interesting responses coming up on what did we see the teachers say and do in the classroom. I'm going to share some of the things that we've learned that have led to the students feeling safe, aware, and responsible. You can take 10 seconds to read that, and I'll just quickly explain some of these points then. If any of these things you've also been doing in your own practice and have a strategy that you'd want to share with us, please chat that in as well. So one thing that really stood out to me, and based on what all of you were sharing, that the teachers were so appreciative of the students. And that's definitely one thing that we know helps anybody learn. And this is not just for adolescent boys specifically, but if I want my students to feel responsible and independent, we've seen teachers communicate really high beliefs. So not only do they believe in their students, they keep telling their students how much they believe in their ability and their skills. At the beginning of the video, you saw this teacher share that, you know, all of you are student leaders, all of you have these qualities. So there's a lot of communicating of this belief that they have in their children. The second thing that really stands out to me is if you saw the videos that were shared to you in the email, or if you explore this classroom further, you find that the students have an opportunity to practice some of these values, right? If I remember when I was teaching, thinking about my students aren't responsible, but if I want my students to be responsible, I have to give them a chance to be responsible. What we saw in Akshay's classroom was that he gave his students the opportunity to demonstrate or show some of their values through football. In this classroom, we saw that the students were leading their own sessions, conducting poetry workshops. So not only did they have space to reflect and express themselves, they also had space to show that they have some of these values. We spoke up, a lot of you mentioned the teacher and peer feedback that you noticed. One thing that I also want to, two things that I'd like to talk about before moving on was the first being exposing our students to various role models. So a lot of research has also shown that when our students, especially young boys, have role models who they can look up to, it impacts their behavior and their learning. So what are the role models my boys or the boys in my classroom have exposure to, and how can I expose them to more role models in their communities? And the second one of, how do I get my students to feel as driven and passionate and ambitious as I saw the boys in the interview. I think one thing that worked for this classroom as well is setting goals with the students so that they have a drive, they feel ambitious towards something. This year we studied a classroom, an 8th grade all boys classroom that called themselves the Gentlemen Club. And when I asked them why they called themselves the Gentlemen Club, that was their goal. Their goal was to be gentlemen in society, and every day they would remind each other that we have to behave like gentlemen, we have to act like gentlemen. So the goal doesn't even have to be academic. It was a behavior centric goal, and that was something that they were feeling driven towards. So these are some of the teacher actions that we are seeing is leading to the change in the student behavior that you saw in the videos. Okay, with this, I'm going to pause here now and move on to some of the questions all of you shared. For that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Oops, that's not stop sharing, this is stop sharing, okay. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to invite the panelists that we have on this call. So I've invited a few of the teachers whose classrooms you've seen right now. So would love for them to, oh yay. So we have Sanjana and Ishani whose classroom we just watched. We have Akshay whose videos you watched before in your emails. We have Dhruv and we also have Nabila. I'm going to ask them to switch on your videos. Hello everybody. Yay. Okay. So all of the people who are on your screen right now were teachers who dealt very closely and have taught adolescent boys. So I'm going to let them address some of the questions that you had related to this topic. So very quickly, to introduce ourselves, can we describe, this is a question for all of you, okay? Describe yourself as a teacher in 3 words. Okay, so what kind of a teacher were you? Describe yourself in 3 words. Whoever is ready can start. Do you want to start us off, please? Okay. This is for the panelists. Describe yourself as a teacher in 3 words. This is the easy question. Okay, I'm going to tag Akshay, and then Akshay can tag somebody else. Sorry.
Yeah, so now I can. I feel like there wasn't anything different. Like this is who I am. So 3 words that I will use is authentic. Second is learner, and the third would be problem solver. And I invite Dhruv.
Okay, thank you, Akshay. The first one I would say is fun, or I'd like to believe I was fun. At least my boys, they said I was fun. So disruptive and fun. And the second would be thoughtful. So it was overburdening of thinking happening in my head all the time. And the third would be empathetic. I would tag Ishani.
Very expected. Okay. So I think the 3 words that I would choose for myself are one is sensitive, because I had this thing where I could figure out how the boys were feeling the moment I walked into the classroom. The second would be funny, the poor jokes kind of funny, and the third would be confused.
Funny. Nabila.
Hi everyone. So 3 words how I would describe myself. One is role model, who's also a culture builder for my kids, and empathetic, and a problem solver. I think these were the 3 words which sustained me while I was teaching my kids, and also it also inspired my kids how they are seeing their teacher and what they need to do as a culture builder, as a problem solver. So I think these are the 3 words how I would describe myself as a teacher.
Okay, thanks, Nabila. So one of the questions that kept coming up that most of the educators on this call had was, how do I manage my students? How do I manage behavior? How do I get my students to listen? So my question for you is, first of all, what was your philosophy towards discipline in your class? What was your approach? And the second question is, what were some actions you took to manage some of the behavioral issues you might have faced? Anybody can start. Go for it. Oh, I have to.
Okay, thank you. So great question. And I think this was one of the first few challenges I think we all had to deal with, right? When you get into the class, like no one's really attentive, and it's hard to just sort of be a teacher right at the front of the classroom, expecting all your children to hear you, and it just doesn't happen. And I think a couple of things there that at least I discovered, and I think before I say anything, I just want to say that I'm not an expert in child psychology, and I haven't done any in-depth research into adolescent boys. My experiences of being or at least teaching for 2 years, 70 adolescent boys, that's where all my answers will be rooted in today, and that's all like I can talk about. So if anyone disagrees, please feel free to sort of talk about it in the chat. I'd be very happy to hear if there are any different opinions there. It would be good to learn from everyone here. Yeah, so I think a couple of things. One was that I think when you go and you see adolescent boys being disruptive or distracted, and not be attentive, I think one thing to realize is that there's a lot of untapped energy in teenage boys. And often there's sort of no real outlet these boys have. You expect them to wake up in the morning, and there are all of these different things that these boys have to go through. They reach school, and then you expect them to sit in this one place and for the next 7 hours focus on this one blackboard, and all of this untapped energy is just waiting to go out there and actually being used, and there's really no way they can use it. So obviously there's this nervous energy and there's this untapped energy that they would do different things in the classroom to use, and that we call disruptive or distracted behavior, right? And so one of the things that I did, at least in my class, was I really tried to use that energy. So very frequently I would ask all the boys to get up, do a lot of warm-up exercises, a lot of running around, a lot of jumping. Tap that energy. Don't hate it as a teacher. That's lovely energy. If you use it well, it actually shows very well in academics. And I think being able to use that energy, I realized that I was able to really work well with the children, even given the option to children to just stand up and learn, if that's okay with them. It's fine. Some children learn differently, and being accepting of that and being and appreciating that as a teacher, and sort of giving them that opportunity to learn the way they want to, whether it is sitting right in the front if they want to come and sit, if they want to stand at the back, whatever works for them, sort of giving them that safe space to be able to use that energy makes them actually be more attentive, and that as a teacher you realize your goals are actually being met as well, right? I think the last thing I want to say is that sleeping is a real problem with teenage boys, and it's not a small problem, and let's not normalize it, I think. And a lot of them are not able to sleep at night for various reasons. Actually, there's science behind it where the sleeping hormones release much later in the night for boys, teenage boys, than actually any other age group. And so they sleep not as much as they should. So in the morning, they're tired, a lot of them, and are not able to focus. And that's why they're distracted and disruptive also. So really building relationship with their parents and understanding, if they have good sleeping routines and habits, and really understanding what's happening in the home environment, that's, I think, crucial as well for you to actually expect them to be attentive in class. So what happens at home affects what happens in class. And I think that relationship is important to understand and work around. So 3 things, I think, according to me: untapped energy, using that, identifying the different learning styles and letting children learn the way they want to. And 3 is working with sleep.
Vilaksha, you want to jump in?
I would just add to, one is the learning style. It's very important for you as a teacher. Like for me as a teacher, it was really important for me to understand how my kids learn, and then thus creating opportunities or creating my daily lessons plan that will help them do what they really, really are interested in doing. And second thing, what really helped me was understanding each kid. So if we say that the kid is not listening, first of all, I don't come from a place where I want everyone to listen to me or everyone to obey with me. I feel like there's a task that I used to create, and everyone was supposed to get involved in that task. And then my thing was to observe what is making the kid not to be the part of the task versus listening to me and having all attention to me. So the second thing was actually understanding what is the problem with each kid, who is being disrupted. So certain point of time, as one of the example, one of the kids needed a lot of attention because that is how he grew up throughout his life. And that's what we saw that when we went for home visits to understand what his daily lifestyle looked like. So for the first month or so when we were new, we thought he is disrupting, he's just wanting attention, and he just doesn't want everyone to learn. The class environment was being disruptive. But later on, when we went to his home, realized that there's a different all story. So it's really, really important for us to understand more than the classroom, what these boys are, what, as Dhruv said, there are certain sleeping patterns they go through. So it's really see what is actually playing out versus assuming that he's not listening to you, he's disrespecting you. So that's all what I wanted to add. Nabila or Ishan.
Interesting.
Ishan, you want to go, or I can, however it works for you. Okay. So I just want to give a little context from where I am coming from. I taught in a co-ed classroom where I taught 34 boys and 16 girls. And now I am working as a program manager in Teach for India, where I'm managing all boys schools. So I saw the shift in boys' behavior when I saw how they are behaving in a co-ed classroom and how they are behaving in a non-co-ed classroom, all boys schools. So something which I figured out, especially when boys are exposed to the other gender, things are the problems which teachers are facing in a school of all boys classroom, the teachers are not facing the similar problems in co-ed classroom, because their things are very normal in terms of they're getting exposed to the other gender, they are talking, the interaction is happening. Whereas when I started managing all boys classrooms, I found it a little tricky. Okay, things are different here. But something over the last 1 year, it's been a year working with all boys classrooms, I realized that something which shifted for budding teachers and for new teachers, especially, I saw one of the questions like if the teacher is also young and she's teaching in a boys classroom, like how will things look like? Something which shifted for a lot of fellows was the relationship they started sharing with their kids. Like when I say relationship, I would like to just put my focus on there. How do you define relationship? Like the conversations they started having with the boys, like when boys started sharing their problems in the classroom without any sort of hesitation. Like since then, I started seeing the culture shift in the most of the classrooms I am managing at this point of time. And the fellows also started telling me like things have been shifting in terms of outcomes and learning in their classes when the relationship between a teacher and the kids are changing. So I think this was one of the, and even I also felt when I was a teacher in my classroom, like my relationship with my kids was one of the strongest enabler in bringing out the outcomes for maths or science. Like if the kid doesn't like me as a teacher, the kid will never ever learn from me. And that's the similar thing which I saw in other boys schools, that in order to like bring effectiveness in learning, like the kids need to understand from where I am coming from and I need to understand as a teacher where they are coming from. So I think this was my strongest enabler as a teacher, and also as a manager now I'm seeing for my fellows.
Thanks, Manjula.
Okay, time for me to go. All right, so I think some of the things was, one was setting very clear boundaries and expectations the moment I walked into class. So there were things which were absolute non-negotiables, and I had to be very sure of that. And I couldn't have like 10 non-negotiables, maybe 3 things that I would not have, were very, very clear and were set in the beginning with the students. One of them was also about personal space in that sense. Right. So I think for me, as the boys were growing up, I also wanted them to know how, how personal space is for people, how to have a conversation without sort of getting into my face, which also a lot of the times when they're angry, they tend to do at each other. So for example, they raise their hands and all of those things, right? So setting personal boundaries and expectations was one clear thing that I think really helped, setting them at the beginning itself. The second one was using lunchtime to bond. So for example, within the classroom, if I was a teacher, during lunchtime, I was the poor jokes person, like I mentioned. I think it was also a little bit of trying to be cool with knowing what they were listening to or what they were watching, or, their favorite, what are things that they like to do. And like, I think even just small things like dropping in music references or show references or asking them what's going on and everything really sort of helps with the bonding and everything. Yeah, so I think those 2 things actually. Yeah.
And a quick follow-up question for you, Ishani. Somebody just typed that in. What were the consequences for not respecting the non-negotiables?
So yeah, that happened a lot. Well, the non-negotiables were not respected in the beginning. One of the consequences, I think the first, I remember this, and I don't know if I would be recommending this or not, but one thing that happened was when I walked into the classroom as a person who did not really also look like the gender that I'm supposed to, I didn't look like a woman as much. So I think a lot of disrespect came to my way, and like disrespect was something I didn't expect. So I think the first thing I did was actually spoke to them first as a class, used opportunities to look at who were the ones who were actually having problems with me and spoke to them. Sadly, though, none of those 2 things worked. And the third thing that I had to try was I actually had to say that I'm not going to be able to teach this class if it's a one-way process where I am trying to reach out to you, but you are not. So my third point was actually walking out of class. Surprisingly, that worked. So yeah, that's something. Consequences are things that you figure out for your own self, depending on the severity of what the action has been towards you. Yeah.
Thanks, Ishani. Welcome, Sanjana. I'm very glad you could join us. All of us just watched your maths. What we're talking about is what was your philosophy towards discipline in class, and how did you manage behavior that at times was disruptive, disengaged? Yeah, would love to hear your thoughts as well.
So I think I taught the same classes as Ashani, and we were teaching a bunch of like young boys, I would say, between the age bracket of 14 to 17. And what I very quickly realized was that these are young adults and not just boys and kids that we usually keep referring them to. And they enjoyed that sense of responsibility that I transferred it to them. And we treated them as young adults right from the beginning. We never mollycoddled them. And it was always this transfer of ownership that we believed in, so that they would take charge of their own learning in the classroom, charge of their own physical bodies. And that's something I think that was grossly missing, not just in the school environment with their previous teachers, but also I think this is something that they also seek a lot at home, right? So giving them that sense of power and that transferring that ownership back to them, that this is your space to learn and this is your limited time to learn. I think that's what made a huge difference, and they enjoyed it. They enjoyed being talked to more respectfully. They didn't enjoy being talked to like they were still in class 7th. And I think that's what made the shift in getting them to be more disciplined by themselves in the classroom, I would say.
Incredible. Thank you everyone for sharing. So what we are hearing is a range of suggestions from make sure you're channelizing the energy that your boys might have to build a relationship with them, understand why they are not being disciplined or why they are not engaging in the classroom like you would want them to. The second thing is set very clear expectations and non-negotiables. They can't be 10, so set 3 very specific expectations you have of your students. Give them the responsibility of, you know, this is the limited time you have, this is your classroom, so on and so forth. Okay, moving on to the next question. So another thing that we saw on this call today and common across all of your classrooms was that the students felt very safe and celebrated the way they talk about each other. So they were taking a lot of pride in their accomplishments. They were talking about how they feel happy to come to school. They feel safe. They were expressing themselves. What do you think was one thing, if you had to think back and articulate one thing that you felt was a game changer towards this?
Okay, I've been unmuted, so I'm guessing Hafsa, you want me to go first? Okay, so it's very hard to think of one thing, which is why I think I was taking my time. But I think if I had to just pick one thing that made the environment in the classroom very safe, stimulating, and joyful, these are the 3 things that I really wanted to put inside my classroom, was the ability for everyone to be able to freely talk about how they're feeling, and having that free speech, idea of free speech, and safe speech, where nothing, you know, you do not, the way you respond to speech is also very respectful, and the way you speak is also very respectful, building that culture right from the beginning. And I think through multiple classroom culture activities, by role modeling that myself, so actually being able to, as a teacher, be able to share when I'm feeling upset, why am I feeling upset. And I think again with teenage boys, they are very, because of their, again, prefrontal cortex and like development of the brain, are not very good at reading and expressing emotions, both of these 2 things. And being again able to recognize that and explicitly model the behavior of how to share emotions, they pick that, and when they do that and when they start behaving that way, it spreads to other children, and when the entire class starts behaving that way, it is a very safe environment. So I think one thing which is expressing and expressing respectfully in the classroom and freely.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. It's so easy to do. Next. Akshay, go for it.
Okay. As you said, like it's very difficult to pinpoint into one thing and say that this is something that changed. But I feel like in retrospect, if I have to pinpoint, what I've written is equal voice in partnership. And underlying this, I feel like vulnerability was something that helped me from day one itself. So it's about it's not always about staying strong and standing in front of the classroom and say, I know it. From day one, when me and my co-fellow were facing challenges, what we did was shared our challenges as well. So it became a journey of a classroom together. So for people who have seen the video and all, you would see that since I was a believer of football, and that's where the theme came in. And so from day one, it was about, it's a team and everyone is playing in the classroom. It's not about who is Bhaiya or who is Didi or who are the students. So basically equal voice and equal partnership, with vulnerability being the key aspect of it.
Sense of community, yeah, that came across in the videos that you watched. Thanks, Akshay.
I'll go next. Yeah. Okay, so I think one game changer actually came up because whenever I would walk into class, so I have this face where I don't smile. Okay, it's just a very just my face. So yeah, anyway, so I think the kids, a lot of the times, they would get really scared. I mean, they would just constantly keep asking me, Didi, are you angry? Didi, are you angry? And it really frustrated me to know that students who were like 40, 50 students in a class only knew that one emotion, anger, and that's all they had, right? So I think Dhruv already mentioned some of it. One thing was actually getting them to label their own emotions, giving them the vocabulary to express what kind of emotion they're feeling, and even also using meditation to help them locate where they're feeling that emotion in their body. So for example, if they're really, really angry and their heart is starting to beat fast, can they say that? Can they articulate that and let that out and let the other person sort of know? So that was a game changer. I think I also want to refer to what Akshay just said, because for me, it was the exact opposite, right? When I walked into class and the moment I was vulnerable, that was taken as weakness by the students, right? And weakness in the sense of weakness that they could pounce upon, weakness that could be used against me to bully me. So I think it would also be useful for us to understand how the class functions or has functioned for the period of time that you haven't been there, and second, also to say where are you placed with respect to the class. So in that sense, are you a person who within the society they've seen people like you being vulnerable, therefore they don't respect you, or are you the kind of person who people like you, they've seen you being really macho and really strong, and therefore they think that your vulnerability then means something to the students. So I think also understanding where you stand in respect to the class, where people who look like you, who sound like you, how have they seen people like you being represented through like movies and books and all kinds of popular culture. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you, Vishal. Go for it, Nabi. Yeah.
Am I audible? Yeah, I think firstly, it's what I understood, like our kids, our boys especially, don't, in their context, they don't have role models at present. Like even if they have role models on YouTube or TikTok. Like these are their role models at this point of time, right? So how important it is to identify those role models for our boys at this point of time, and like how, as you mentioned, Hafsa, like in Kavita's class, like how she deliberately named her class like gentlemen boys classroom, because she wanted kids, and I have been working with her for the past 1 year. Like every day I saw the kids reflecting on the gentleman behavior by the end of the classroom. Okay, what are the certain characteristics of gentlemen I have shown in the classroom today? Did I what didn't work? What certain things I need to change in order to be a gentleman? So I think these were some of the behaviors which these were some of the reflection practices which I saw like boys doing time and again, which help them reflect on their own actions and things which they are not doing well. So it's very important for them to reflect what I need to change, who am I right now, who I need to be. In order to be called as a gentleman. So I think this was one of the game changer I saw in some of the classrooms I have been working with, and also like reflection as a practice. I also did it for my kids. Like we had 3 values for our classroom: respect, empathy, and curiosity. And by the end of every each day, we practiced on these 3 values, and we reflected on these 3 values. Where did we show it? How did we show it? And if didn't, like, what will I do next to like build all these values in myself as a student? And I also reflected with them like what are the certain spaces where I created these values, like created spaces for them where they can show these values. So I think reflection for me was a game changer. It did take time. Like it wasn't easy for my kids to because they were not in a habit to reflect. Neither was I, to be very honest. When I started as a budding teacher, it was a difficult practice to like build in. But it took me like good 3 months. But we did it every day. So I think that was one. Another piece which I have written here, and now when I'm reflecting of my classroom, like it's been 3 years now. So something which worked was like having democracy in classroom management. When I say democracy in classroom management, I mean like generally we tend to make student leaders in the classroom. Okay, these 4 are student leaders, right? And then these narratives like hold a strong picture in students' mind. Okay, these are the only student leaders I have, but how can I also be a student leader? How am I contributing to my classroom, and how am I being the culture builder in my classroom? So something which I started doing in my 2nd year of my fellowship, of my teaching, is that I made sure like all 50 kids in my classroom have some role to play. Like equity in group work, like they have one role to play as a student to bring productivity in the classroom, in order to show them that each of them are culture builder instead of 1 or 2 or 3 people in the classroom, and how each one of them are contributing, and how each one of them have to take the ownership. If something is not working in the classroom, this is not the responsibility of the teacher alone, but the responsibility of entire 51 people in the classroom. So I think just how Akshay mentioned, like having active voices in the classroom where each and every one is participating and taking the ownership. I think that these 2 things, like reflection and democracy in classroom management, worked for my classroom.
Amazing. So we are hearing multiple strategies that work for you. First, Dhruv and Akshay, what worked was being vulnerable in class, sharing your emotions. Sanjana and Shani, what you mentioned was helping your students identify what emotion they were feeling in order to get them to express that better. What didn't work for you was being vulnerable in class, and you shared why about that. And Nabila, you spoke about giving responsibility to your students, holding space for them to reflect. Something that we also saw when we were studying the classrooms was, if my students get an opportunity to be responsible, they will be more responsible. So we echo that sentiment as well. One last question I have before we end this call, and either of you, Sanjana or Shani, would love for you to start us off. A lot of the questions that people shared were also around, I have students in my classroom who are, using drugs, or I have, I'm a teacher in a classroom, and sometimes there's, I feel unsafe around the students in my classroom. How would you address some of these? What has been your experience? What advice do you have for us? Do I have to unmute you?
Yeah, so I've been unmuted, so I'll go ahead. So I wouldn't say that there weren't cases of substance abuse. In fact, there were repetitive cases, and it was a progression of, especially during this age, right, in 9th, 10th, and also the fact that you can't shelter your students from the rest of the other students, especially their seniors, because they tend to idealize what the grade 11, 12 students are doing. So that is something that you couldn't stop. But within those seniors also, I think what helped was identifying the ones who weren't abusing themselves. And I think that really helped, like when we were able to identify some of their own friends who were doing just fine without abusing any sort of substance. Apart from that, I think very, very open conversations and being quite honest about what you do as well, because I think a lot of times the students would question you back saying that don't you drink, don't you smoke, and at that point, like if you're going to act like a saint and say that no I don't, I think that just builds this wall between you and the student. And I think as a team in our school, what we did was that we didn't say that no, this is something absolutely bad, or like we don't do this, we are perfect people, perfect humans and stuff. I think it was important to accept that humans are imperfect and you do end up divulging in these habits. But I think it was also important to highlight the fact that this wasn't the right age to do it. I think even with the alumni, I think the alumni are someone who we roped in a lot for a lot of these issues as well, because if you look at the class that we handle, they've always had male alumni, and we were the only first few female fellows. So being attacked by saying that, oh, women also drink, women also smoke, that was also a big deal. And I think at that point, what we did was we roped in the alumni, and I think they had very open conversations with them as well, that there's a certain age to do it, and what is the need for it. And I think we never took it directly to the parents, we never took it directly to the principal or any of that stuff. And I think that's what helped build that trust and not have that wall between us and the students. And I think that's the most important part. To have these conversations, you need to have a very open and a comfortable, safe space with them, and then approach the conversation. But never, I would say, completely say no to something, because that comes as an order and not an understanding then. I think it's always good to make them reflect and make a decision by themselves, I would say.
Okay, thank you, Sanjana. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. There's one very interesting question Shri just asked. I'm going to do quickly. Shani, if you can summarize this into 150 words. How are we teaching boys about gender equality, especially in boys' schools? I do want to talk about it a little bit. Quickly, Shani, rapid fire, 30 seconds. Do you have an answer, or we can? Oh, I have to unmute. Go for it.
Yes, I have an answer. Yay, I love this. Okay, one is of course get more and more to your classroom who are not men, so that they can see that there are different kinds of people. And I would not women, because I want to say that there are more genders than just men and women. So get more and more, get them to also. This is something I did was when I used poetry with them, because poetry is short and they can read it quickly. I gave them poems from many different people. Am I audible? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I gave them poetry written by many different people from different places. You can give them poetry by people of different castes, people of different genders, people of different sexualities, because they read about it. And surprisingly, they actually, because base emotions are something that we do understand, they were really able to understand that, you know, at the end of the day, the other side, or any other side for that matter, they're also people. And I think that is what a lot of the times when we talk about gender, sexuality, caste, or whatever, we dehumanize people. That's how structures work, right? But the main aim is to show them that, you know what, we're dealing with. So it's not that difficult to actually have a conversation with a person if you are being respectful enough. And we also want to talk about that violence bit, because I think somebody asked about how did you deal with violence in the class. Really scared when I faced violence in the class, and I faced all kinds. I was hit at one point of time as well. Really scary. One was using having a support system of people who you could reach out to and say, listen, can you take over at this point of time, because I'm going to go outside and cry, right? So having somebody that for you. Second is I faked it. I faked my confidence, and I sort of went up and said that, you know, I want to have a conversation with what really happened at this point of time. Really difficult for me, and I made sure that this group of support system people were also there with me, so that I didn't feel alone through the process. So I think to deal with violence requires a lot of courage, but also a lot of like just faking it and saying that, you know, I'm really ready to have a conversation, or even if it's difficult, I want to have a conversation about this, but do it at your own time, I would say. Yeah.
Thanks, Shani. Okay, that brings us to the end of the panel. Over to you, Mansi. Thank you everyone for joining the webinar and for your questions. I will share further resources of these classrooms so you can explore them in more detail, and maybe some email IDs so that you can ask your questions directly.
We would like to thank Hafsa and the panel for being generous with their time and expertise. Can you also please quickly share your thoughts on the webinar today, Hafsa?
I had a lot of fun. Some very exciting questions. I just wish we had more time because I feel like these were such important questions that need so much more exploration. I feel like we've just touched the surface. Maybe this needs to be a 3-part webinar series, but I'm hoping this was a spark for everyone and there are more things to explore.
Yeah, absolutely. We hope this was a spark, and we hope the participants carry forward their learning from here and add to it. Our next webinar is scheduled to take place on May 4th, which is a Monday, with the Training and Impact team of Teach for India on teaching and learning math with secondary classrooms. So do look for FIRCI emails in your inbox for information on this upcoming webinar. Before you leave, please take a minute to give us feedback on your learning experience on our webinar today. This helps us improve our resources for you. Please paste the link in your browser to give us feedback on this webinar. Reach out to our speakers. Webinar, write to hafsa.bukhari@teachforindia.org. This information will be pasted on the chat window. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you all the panelists. We appreciate all your inputs. Thank you.